Владика Клавдіо є давній друг і соратник нашого університету. Дехто тут присутній був студентом, коли він був на нашій англомовній літній школі в 96-му році. Це був перший приїзд. В 98-му році саме він вибивав нашу акредитацію в Римі. Протягом наступних років він запрошував, будучи нунцієм в Грузії, наших викладачів, наших хористів, наших студентів відвідувати його і творив зв'язки між Україною і Грузією, Вірменією, Азербайджаном, між УКУ і науковими і церковними установами в цих країнах. Згодом він був нунцієм в Білорусі, де між іншими такими здобутками він домігся звільнення політв'язнів, перших звільнених політв'язнів, які ця недавня історія бачила в Білорусі. Але сьогодні на цій лекції ми маємо нагоду послухати тонкого аналітика культури, суспільства в світлі християнської традиції, євангельських принципів і взагалі християнської антропології і соціології. Я надіюся, що це є початок. Присутність владики Клавдіо в Україні, дай Боже, протягом наступних років, це нагода для нас і не тільки для нас отримати стимул, конструктивні пропозиції. Це може суб'єктивно, але я вважаю, що з 5000 католицьких єпископів, з безлічі католицьких богословів, які є в мільярдовій церкві католицького сопричастя, владика Клавдіо належить до 20-30 найтонших аналітиків духовного, церковного життя і людського досвіду в широкій євроазійській території, яка обіймає Європейський Союз і колишній Радянський Союз. Його перспектива, крім глибоких богословських, літургічних, патристичних наук, крім спеціалізації в вірменській літургії, літературі, його перспектива має фундамент досвіду, дуже різного, високого посадовця, якщо так можна сказати, у Ватикані, який одночасно був магістром колегіум для студентів в Римі, де були всякі неформали, студенти, архітектори, музиканти, історики, поети і так далі. І в спосіб, який вдається небагатьом, владика Клавдіо вмів і далі вміє це все поєднувати. Бог йому дав дар мови і дар гумору, і дар любові до людей, яку, я думаю, ми пережиємо сьогодні і в наступних роках. Так що це є велика честь і приємність мені представити нашого нунція.
Usually, in the Western world, we say hello But they told me that in Ukraine, I have to say,
Христос не родился. So I tried to be faithful to what they told me to say. It happened very rarely that I was faithful to what they told me to say, but and that created me some problems in my history. Good. It's very nice to see you. I thought I was speaking particularly to students, but I see that I'm speaking particularly to teachers and professors. So, the notes I have taken, by the way, in Italian, because I forgot that we wanted me to speak in English, will be a little bit adjusted to the situation. It's a great pleasure and honor to be here. It's not the first time I have disturbed the community of the Uku many times in my decades, but this time it is also my duty to disturb you. So you see what's happening. I'm probably speaking too near. So we shall have a chance, I imagine, to meet frequently. And I thank God for that. One of the reasons that made me happy was that I was going in a country where Uku is. And maybe also start another course of studies. Who knows? I mean, before the grave, it's always important to improve one's culture. They gave me a very difficult subject because it is very general, and in many circumstances, everybody speaks about everything. And people are completely fed up of being considered a kind of exotic animal about which everybody speaks. And that is exactly what happens with citizens of former Soviet Union. It is, you know, very unusual to speak about that subject for foreigners. And the reason is very simple. That foreigners think that once the Berlin Wall fell, everything was solved. Thank God that Svetlana Alexievich received the Nobel Prize, because she is a woman that only described what people felt in the tragic years of Soviet Union, and particularly in her last book, when Soviet Union fell apart. She is a good friend of mine, and she has been rejected by everybody. She is Ukrainian by mother, I imagine. Father is from Belarus. She studied in Belarus, and when she started writing, she thought that it was better to live somewhere else, of course, for various reasons. And then she came back to Belarus, and now she lives in Minsk. And when the Nobel Prize was announced, there was the question, will the government congratulate her or not? This is something which is off records, of course. And there was a congratulation, but there was no broadcasting of her prize when she received the prize. And the very nice thing was everybody was trying to pull her on her or his own side, you know, because the oppositions wanted to show that she belonged to the opposition, and they didn't succeed. The opposition didn't even try to show that she was a supporter of the position, because her ideas were very clear. The fact is that that woman is the representative of a generation of disappointed people. Of people that saw something falling apart, and even if they didn't believe that that was the truth, that was the tragedy. And she is a witness of that tragedy. Thank God the books have been translated into various languages, so that I even could read it in French when there was not yet the translation into Italian. My impression is that when you become a subject of discussion and scholarly study, as long as scholarly study is done in a scholarly way, then it's okay. When it becomes a way for, just spreading opinions, then it is a disaster. It is a disaster. There is only one way one can try to understand and to perceive what is happening in the person that is near him or her. And it is empathy. It is the possibility of feeling through skin. Because if you start thinking, you can think only on your perception, but not in spite of your perception. So what we are trying to do today is just to represent, to convey to you what I can feel through skin. After more or less 30 years of impact with the then Soviet Union and the post-Soviet Union, which is also a very bad way of being defined, you see. It is as if your mother were not a very serious woman, and everybody would always remind that you are the son of that woman. But it happens in history, unfortunately. To speak very deeply or for a long time about what you can feel is a little bit ridiculous, if you permit me, because you can say what you feel, which is not very frequently quoted, because one of the firm beliefs of the Westerners is the fact that you cannot speak, because they have simply blocked your expression. That you were so used not to speaking because you were afraid that you cannot even describe your present situation. And this is the first thing, the first area where you have to show that it is not like that. This is your first duty. Start speaking about yourself. Otherwise, they will interpret you. I mean, all the world is a world of psychologists that is going to approach you and understand what is within your heart. Of course, it's difficult. I live in Belarus, so I can assure you that it is much more difficult there than here. The problem when you spoke with the youth in Belarus was to say, what is your name? Which was more or less easy to say. And then you say, what you feel. How do you feel today? Нормально. Well, нормально is probably a Soviet word that was invented to impede a person to say what he or she feels. But it is also another thing which is very interesting. Нормально means I feel as all others do. It refers to a pattern that is imposed. And this is the reason why in these areas we have a kind of phobia for what is not normal. And you can convince a person that that person is not normal in very many ways. I think you had some discussions in the past about one of these aspects that in Ruku was emphasized because of some of your teachers, our professors. But it's very interesting to understand that to be normal is to be proud of oneself. And unfortunately, people in these areas tendentially are not proud of themselves. And that is one of the problems. When you are not proud of yourself, you beg for self-confidence. And the one that sells you self-confidence becomes the winner. Then you you realize that that person cheated you. And then you feel deeply hurt because you needed self-confidence. And the person apparently gave it to you, but it was for getting money or power. So you see, the only reason for speaking about you is just to help the person that speaks to understand what he feels and what he thinks deeply inside. And the only reason for you to listen to me is not because I am the Apostolic Nuncio, that for you means absolutely nothing, and rightly so, but because you can have a reaction to what I say. And your reaction is much more important than my words, because it will help you to understand yourself better. To speak about oneself or somebody else, you need some special elements. First, to be a deep person. To be a deep person means to know oneself pretty well. I cannot say to know oneself very well. It happens not frequently. And what is even more important is to look at himself or herself critically, but with mercy. Critically is what a university should give you. With mercy is what the church should give you. We are manipulators, all of us. And you know why? Because we need love. As we need love, and we don't always understand what love is, we have to get love from somebody, you know. So to please that person. To please, because you need the feedback. You need getting back a reaction of esteem and support. Doesn't matter, you can also lie and say how beautiful you are, even if you think that maybe the girl or the boy is not particularly sympatyczny, as the Russians say, which is another expression of taboo. Because you can say that a girl is beautiful, but a man is sympatyczny. Language is always very important to understand people, you know, very important. So, if you want, sorry, I move here and there, it's my style. Just remember that one way to understand the mentality of the people is when you have to ask to go to the toilet. How do you say that? That is very important. Because the way you ask for a toilet will be the way you approach your personal problems. If you can speak out, then it's okay. If you have to say, can I wash my hands? Then it means that you will have problems in telling some of your problems. Also because everybody, it's not usual for us to hear washing the hands. So we always think why these hands should be so dirty that this person needs to wash the hands so frequently. But let us put aside the parentheses. Originally, manipulations come from lack of affection. Then it becomes a job. If a person is not very careful, it becomes a job because you don't care to get affection. You want to get results, which means power and money. And you become a manipulator, knowing that it is bad, and knowing that you are a manipulator. But the origin is, you wouldn't have tried this kind of manipulating attitude if you had felt that you were worth being looked at with love. Second condition for speaking about somebody or about oneself is interior freedom. In this period, there was a very wide discussion about freedom and dignity and all these things. So I stopped a person 2 days ago and said, what is dignity? No answer. We are fighting for dignity. What is dignity? Dignity is dignity. You see, going and playing with words means to create slogans. Slogans can be good or bad, but they are always slogans. Going inside in order to find the source of a concept is the only condition to be a highly intellectual person, intelligent, and at the same time to be a person that can understand the others. Otherwise, we speak a language that is a slang, but it is not a communication. To be free inside. You know what the opposite of that is? Something you are very much used to, as we are in the West. Propaganda. Propaganda is the lack of internal freedom and the building of a system that kills internal freedom. Or, I speak to the few ones that are very young, to impede you to have the experience of internal freedom. Propaganda is subtle, and we always see the propaganda of our enemy, but we rarely see the propaganda of our side. The former Soviet world, with enormous trouble, gets rid of propaganda. Because the system, you remember that there was a ministry for propaganda. Still, in Belarus, in every region, there is a person in charge of so-called propaganda. Propaganda what is not very clear, but the person is there. To convince the other, at any cost, and with all means, of something which you yourself don't believe. Because it's very often openly false. And for this reason, you need to make it beautiful so that the other accepts. There is nothing more fascinating for the power than to buy a beautiful dress to an ugly reality and put it on, and when people say, what beautiful person, and then they say, well, we succeeded. So, propaganda. Be careful, because this is something like a reptile, like a snake. Propaganda can also be the illusion of being better than we are. Which means not to spend more efforts in order to be what we want. And propaganda is a terrible weapon against the others. You know, probably they told you, I still speak to the students, but the others know very well, that the most destructive way of propaganda was to spread news or rumors about you. And Yuku knows it very well. I went to see a priest in a prison, a Catholic priest, in the prison of KGB. He was accused of spying in favor of Poland. And before allowing me to see him, which took 3 months and a half, they told me, be careful, because this priest, we found some strange newspapers in his home, you know, something in the computer which is not very decent for a priest. And then I said, sorry, I couldn't care less. Is it a problem with your state security? Has he committed anything against your rules and against your laws? No. So why are you telling me these details? This is the problem between his conscience and God. 3 times they insisted on different occasions to tell me that. And I said, but listen, do you think that your life is better? Or do you tell your colleagues in the ministry that they watch pornographic journals? Why do you tell me that this priest does it? He has not been in prison for watching this kind of material. But this is very interesting. This is very interesting because this is exactly what I mean when I say that propaganda wants to create a picture of a person, completing all the small pieces of mosaic that, in order to destroy the reputation much beyond what you accuse the person of. There can be also people that make propaganda and they are very convinced that they are fighting for the good cause. But when it happens, then you have to be very careful because you are trying to destroy your own good things. When you make propaganda out of your good feelings, you are destroying the good feelings and turning them into something bad. What your university is proud is to be open, to be honest, to be clear, to be искренне. To be искренне is the opposite of propaganda. But never be proud of being искренне when you are not. Because that is propaganda. And if there is only one point where you are not искренне, you have to change it before starting speaking well about yourself. We are the expression of a religion without propaganda. Originally, then we became also masters of propaganda, but it is another problem. Because Jesus Christ was the one that never said, "What are you saying about me? I am the Son of God. How would you dare?" Remember something which all of you should meditate, because it is a treatise of political sciences. Jesus in front of Pilate. Jesus in front of Pilate chooses silence, which is something that is deeply repugnant to us. Then say if you are the king, and he keeps silent. And that makes Pilate furious. They say, "You don't speak to me. You know that your life depends on me." And the other say, "How are you joking? What do you think that depends on you? Nothing depends on you." It is the rejection of propaganda. If you are the Son of God, come off the cross, and we shall trust and believe in you. Silence. The answer to propaganda is silence. Silence because reality speaks out. And so I said, freedom. Freedom? What is freedom? Where is freedom? I have never seen freedom. I have never seen complete freedom. I have never seen a free country. Never. I have seen people that try to work in a less, how can I say,
inhibited, less inhibited way?
Well, he says inhibited, I immediately accept because, of course, he is the president. But
freedom.
I mean,
constrained.
Your dictionary. Dictionary. The freedom of expression, for example. Yes, freedom of expression exists. But it doesn't mean that that society is free. It can be more free than another. It can have the freedom of speaking. I remember when there was the period of my youth, which is already at the time of Napoleon, we were very agitated in our university and before in our school career. We had to save the world, to make the world good. And what happened then? It happened that we decided that freedom is the most important thing. So we went to streets, we started shouting, we started to say openly what we thought, which meant usually to speak against your enemy very openly in the streets, but not only. So it was the freedom of expression, and the workers came to the street and tried to shout, asking for their rights. It had begun much before, of course, but it had its bloom in that period. And what was the invention of the capital? The invention of the capital was to say it is much better if you go home and have good sex with your wife. So we started producing an enormous quantity of things that gave the person the impression that taking care of his or her personal life, intimate personal life, is the real alternative to fighting. Good food, good sex, good, more or less. Well, at least it must have been pleasing, because I have not much experience in the area, so I cannot say if it was or not. But in any case, to give the impression that, drinking was another system. I mean, all the states get taxes from alcohol and from tobacco. And then they put they mark on the box of the cigarettes that it kills you. 70% in Italy of the cost of cigarettes goes to the state. In Belarus, I don't know here, usually they say that in these areas people tend to be not very detached from the bottle. So in Belarus it was quite evident. But the important thing was to do it where the policeman could not see you. Because when you are drunk, you tend to speak what you think. Even to kiss a person, can you imagine? Impossible. The first thing they told me when I went to Belarus was that you need 40 centimeters from the other person, because it is called the space of intimacy. That after the bottle, the 40 centimeters immediately disappear. And then it is hard to find 1 centimeter at all. So, drink. It's okay, but don't be dangerous. And the law of pleasure that has become the ruling law in this country was born as an alternative to be dangerous for power. I hope I am not too Marxist in my analysis, because Vladika is looking at me in a very dangerous way. he is depriving me of meal tonight. So, if you want to be free, you have to know yourself, my dear friends. To go inside and work very much. And never ask, and when they ask you how you feel, never answer, "Нормально." At least don't answer like that within yourself. The work of culture, which is your job, is one of the ways to go deep inside. The other is pain. When you are in pain, you get in touch with yourself much better. When you lose a person, when you lose a word, when you lose a condition, then you become more intelligent. Which doesn't mean that you have necessarily to lose something in order to become intelligent. It helps. You need ideals. Otherwise, they will buy you with a box of cigarettes. It is only if you want much more that you can say no when they want to give you much less. There are so many potential heroes that lost their role simply because they thought that it was enough and they could get something back. You never can think that it is enough. You have to go further. I need much more, said the saint when they wanted to convince him that, well, work with us. He said, no, I want much, much more, much beyond. Get rid of the idea that money is everything and power is everything. Christ was tempted 3 times in the desert, and the temptation was money and power. And these are the eternal temptations of all humankind. And those who come in the place of thieves usually become thieves. It is difficult to change this law if these people have not high ideals, even the ideal of losing one's life for the good. If it doesn't happen, it means that in a way or another, the box of cigarettes will be their goal. Of course, you will increase the value of the cigarettes inside that box every time. There will be golden cigarettes after. Maidan. We heard very much speak about Maidan in Belarus when I was there, and they were all, the young people were interested in understanding what it might mean. The will of being free. The will of dignity. And now, another Maidan? How many Maidans? Are the people killed? Reverse the rulers? Not reverse the rulers? Simply disappointment? You know, young people tend to be strongly disappointed. And the capacity of reaction in front of disappointment is very important. Otherwise you become passive and depressive. And there is nothing worse than a young person that becomes the victim of depression. Again, it doesn't happen if you look upwards. Because if you look downwards, you will not fall because you see how the road is. But you never see that the sun might shine. So, what to do? We shall see. Depends on you. It depends on you. You know, what is very important and what was very dangerous because of the system, of the communist system, is that even if Oh, it's a clear sign that I have to finish. Thank you very much. Well, of course, we had an agreement before. The idea that everything depends on somebody else that doesn't give you what you deserve. It's not true. You get what you deserve. You build what you deserve. You start using your fantasy. And the Slavic fantasy is one of the most fascinating fantasies in the world. But never think that you are the servants of somebody that might solve your problems. It doesn't happen. And never think that you are too stupid to be the main character of your own freedom. Because then you will find somebody that is going to work with the puppies. And he will manipulate the puppies, offering wonderful scholarships and wonderful jobs abroad. You see, just to make you feel that, well, I make you feel worthy of living. This is one of the terrible situations. The lack of self-confidence combined with the impression that the other is guilty because he doesn't give you what you need for surviving is now the key point of the future. If you don't get beyond that, it will be very dangerous. So, Father Boris, Vladika Boris, asked me to say, what has the gospel to do with all this? The gospel doesn't provide you with anything, with any solution, with any political recipe. It only tells you that God loves you, God trusts you, God died for you. It is the peak of a free love to be crucified, not to deny freedom. Not to be a kind of clown of humanity. He could have come off the cross. What was the problem? We shall believe in you. It is exactly what I want. And many people do that. They come off the cross and say, what? This is a magical man. The counterfeiting of God is to make a magician of God. And in fact, in the Old Testament, the fight against idolatry was exactly the fight against the idea of making God a kind of idols, which means something which is in my hands, I can touch. It's the same as money. But now they don't touch money usually. They put it in banks, and the bankers touch it, and sometimes steal it. So remember that the cross is what means for us human dignity. Human dignity is to become a bandit in the eyes of everybody, that because these people spat on the face at Jesus. They put a vestment that was like the vestment of a king. So it is the paradoxical, theatrical recognition of power. But the reality was that he was the victim. And he didn't accept the vestment as a king in order to say, you see, I am your king. He just allowed them to take the garment off, and he took his cross and went to crucifixion. God. This is the style of God. The cross is not a must, it is a choice. It is a political choice. If you give up to violence, to weakness, to internal rejection of accepting the witness of love, if you decide that it is much better to be on the side of the powerful person, then you reject the cross. But remember that power never loves. Never. The only possibility is to go up to the last drop of blood on a cross as an outcast. Then you will have nothing to lose. And you can be a witness of a love up to the last breath. The churches, because here there is a variety of churches which is absolutely unknown in the world. Yeah, there is a creation of a new church every 30 minutes. The church is not the crucifix. So is continuously tempted by power. It's tempted in the name of God to be the victim of power, and then to say to your murderer, come on, love me, smile at me, I will come with you. Please smile, just smile. If you can open my, if I also fill my pocket, I will be very grateful, but it's not necessary. At least smile. At least make me feel important. I am the friend of an oligarch. I am a friend of a minister. Oh, how nice it is, you know. It is so nice. Just give me the possibility of saying that. I don't want anything else. Of course, you usually want money for that. But it is a danger for the church, because it becomes an institution, and it is an institution. And we need persons from within the church that show not propaganda in favor of the church, but to show the church that it is sinner. And then, if we are honest, we, the new priests, the new high priests, will be grateful for, again, once again, for showing what reality is. Which does not mean that everybody that wants to destroy the church is doing for its good, of course. But the fact that from inside, if somebody starts saying, listen, don't you think you might have behaved in a different way? Well, we have to kiss his feet. He might be a little bit aggressive, not particularly educated. Might be, but at least he allows us to think about what is inside. Because even martyrdom, even a history of martyrdom, this is your story, I mean, the Greek Catholics, can become a reason for becoming now the supporters of the powerful ones. Now, at last, they understand us. Now we can get back something that is ours. The martyrs never got back anything. Never. The new citizens can desire and get something back because they are the new citizens, but not the martyrs. The martyrs are martyrs because they are martyrs. This university is a place where you can meet each other to discover your own personal freedom. Because often freedom comes out of comparison. What the dictatorships want to avoid in all circumstances is to allow people to compare one with the other. Even less to compare with somebody that lives outside. The first way will be to cut communication, either by fear or even technically by impeding it. It's a little bit more difficult with computers, but I have the impression that dictatorships are a little bit in trouble with computers. That you have to pay somebody that can manipulate computers, of course, and that it becomes easy. Second thing that a university can offer is to be martyrs of studying. As long as they don't kill you with the discipline of studying, they are betraying you. I'm very sorry. I remember how I cursed my professors in the past, and how I blessed them now. They were relentless. If they smile at you and they say, how good you are, how nice you are, go on, it doesn't matter if you have not studied, pat. Go on. They are not, it is not their job. They are betraying their profession. They must make you bleed. They must oblige you to study for hours and hours on end, so that your brain starts to work. I have a doctor here in Ukraine that was imposed on me by the sister in the Nunцia that makes me weep when he makes massage. I mean, all the bones are cracking. And you say, why do you want to? This is the only way to get rid of your tension, of your stress. And there is nothing worse than brain with stress, because it gets blocked. So you need somebody that works with your brain in a work that it will crack like a bone. Otherwise, it's the death of thought. I'm very sorry. I was terrible when I was a professor. Everybody remembers me. You don't think it is. I look so sweet, don't I? But if somebody had not shown me that, when I said this is impossible, this language is not possible, I cannot go on studying that subject. So what? Don't sleep in the night for 15 days. You will succeed. I mean, 2 eyes like that, you know. But I got it. I got it. I discovered that I could. The glass is here, so I have to finish it, of course. Freedom means don't pay attention to these animals that dance in front of you and say, how beautiful it is, come with me, come with me. Because they are devils that look like angels. Don't just give incense to yourself, or to your past, or to the virtues or supposed virtues of your people. In the former Soviet Union, we are creating a new historiography, going on to traditions, and we are inventing a lot of incredible stuff that doesn't exist in order to convince that we have an identity. We are even quoting what was shameful for our ancestors in order to show that it is our real nature. One of the problems of historiography in this country is the fact of telling the truth and not inventing something in order to allow people to feel that they are heroes and that you invented the writing even before that man existed on the earth. I lived in an area of competitions among cultures that was absolutely incredible. I was at a conference about Γκούджερотті. I don't know if you know Γκούджerotті. Γκούджerotті was an Armenian from Greece, it seems to me, that founded a kind of exoteric, or more or less Gnostic, new Gnostic tendency, which was widespread at the end of the 19th century and still exists. We have a famous singer in Italy that is a follower of this group. Gurdjieff. And it was an international conference. And then what happened that the Armenians said, well, this is our man. And a Georgian professor said, well, he was probably a Georgian because Gurjistan in Georgia means Georgia. Gurjistan is in Turkish, sorry. In Turkish, it means that Georgia. So if he is Gurdjieff, it is from Gurjistan. So he probably would, I mean, we are fed up with this kind of stupid stuff, pseudo-scientific, that goes on about constructing and building the culture of your people. You have not to show that they were the most intelligent in the world. You have just to show that there were people worthy of living and that accepted life out of hard work. All the other comes, but not for the pleasure of the tyrant. Another point for freedom is just to accept that you are free only if your fellow is free. If you become free at the expense of your neighbor, it means that you are a slave. And you are enslaving the neighbor. And so again, that you are an instrument of power. Last point. Avoid any form of corruption. Avoid any... Corruption is a political system and a social system before being a sin. Corruption means that there is no central power, and then the clanic powers, I am a specialist because I'm Italian, and mafia is the best example. It's not what mafia is now. Mafia was the organization, very archaic, of a society without a central power, where clans had to act according to what they considered their natural law, which is the law of power. The strongest was the head. This is very strong in its archaic structure in the Caucasus. It's very strong, it's very apparent, it's very evident. So you know, corruption at the beginning is the fact that you try to, if there is a central power that thinks that it is central, you must take money from him in order to survive. And then it becomes only the fact of stealing money. If at the beginning it was a kind of very primitive system of decentralization, it becomes simply stealing for the sake of stealing. But corruption can also be the fact that they say, well, my dear, you are so nice. Come on, pass this exam even if you have not studied. But you don't give money to this person, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You are corrupted because you don't want justice to be promoted. You are corrupted with the people that studied more than this boy or this girl and get a result which is not as good. Corruption is the fact that, well, if you give me some money, you know, I can even mention your name in the liturgy. And that was the reason of his death. He didn't even flatter his own religion, and that was the reason of his death. Be proud of what you are, even if it is very little. But be proud of what you can be, and remember that this, apart from God, depends very much on you. Things are in your hands. Future of Ukraine is in your hands. What you have to do, what you have to decide, we cannot tell you. You will have very expert European analysts that will teach you even how you have to breathe in order to be free. Don't trust them. Don't trust them. These people don't breathe at home, and they are teaching you how to breathe. I've seen in this year of diplomatic life so many ugly things. I only say, if those who are celebrating your freedom could be so, how can I say, honest as not to bargain with Russia about how to build a pipeline that will cut off Ukraine from any possibility of surviving in a decent way. Well, if they tell you how to breathe, tell them, go home and start breathing yourself. Thank you.
Much to think about.